Oh, all right. Now, this is a card that other people have told me is their favorite card. So, aha, it's not my favorite card, it's other people's favorite card. Hi, this is John Paulus. I just drew card number 47 of Life's Potluck Buffet, and that is Culture is a Living Being. I'm going to read this card out loud to you. Every identifiable arrangement of human beings has a culture. Like any living being, cultures wish to reproduce themselves and stay alive. Cultures speak through their people without the people being aware of it. While still part of the culture, a person cannot stand apart from what keeps the culture alive. The culture will not allow it. Identify the different work cultures in which you operate. Say what one of those cultures is doing that keeps it alive. This is a very, very deep prompt, and this is one that takes some thought and is the 35,000-foot view of your work life. If any of the cards is that, this is it. That's funny. I was just talking about airplanes, wasn't I, in card 20 about your oxygen mask. So I guess we're talking about being in that plane here in 35,000 feet and understanding, looking down from that plane and seeing the earth below on a clear day. It looks different, right? But it's important to take a moment once in a while and have that view. And also, it's really important when understanding other people's work, other work cultures, because by applying this principle that culture is a living being, and that like any living being, culture just wants to stay alive and reproduce itself, like any organism. This kind of thinking is really helpful to gain insights into what's going on, whether it's at your organization or even at a national or global level. I was thinking recently about things that a Japanese executive wrote in the 80s about good treatment of employees and workers, and how parts of the Japanese system were a little bit more humane or people-centered than what they saw in the American system and the American work culture. And they were considering this. A lot of the elements they were talking about, the American work culture started to be the more dominant one. And in this kind of cultural organizational competition, the American one seemed to be kind of winning out. Not for any good reason. Quite the opposite. Once you have this thought that every culture is a living being, you can really start to apply it to any work culture that you're involved in or anyone that you hear about. And you could do this for any organization of people, whether it's social organization, political organization. It's just a helpful way of thinking about human existence in a cultural form. And so think about ways in which you work right now and try to think of what the main word that you'd associate with the work culture that you're in right now. Let's say the organization that you work for. What's the main word that you would associate with it? Okay. Now, thinking about the word that popped into your head, and if a word didn't pop into your head, give it another thought. I'll give you another few seconds, right? So think about one word that describes your current employer's culture. Was the word negative or positive? That's the first thing we want to see. Was it something that you said trust, or did you say distrust? If you said something negative, what would it take for that to be something positive? Is it possible? That's always what we're asking. Is it essential to the functioning of the organization? If it is something essential that is so grounded in the basic culture of the organization, and that means in the people of the organization, not just the powers that be in the organization, but in the workers of the organization who have taken on this culture, because wherever you are working, it's as though you've moved to a foreign country that you're going to become a resident of permanently. I don't mean you're going to be in that same place, that same job forever. I just mean that it's the equivalent of really becoming part of another culture. It's even more than that, because your identity becomes so wrapped up in it that it's as though that was your original culture to begin with. So it's even more than really acculturating yourself to a new country. Another fact about culture being a living being is that means that cultures speak through their people without the people being aware of it. And this is something, too, to look out for. When we're saying things about our cultures, and when we're saying things about others in the context of our cultures, the culture is speaking through us if we're not very, very aware of it. Once you become aware of it, you kind of step outside of it for a second to look in on it as a outside observer and say, oh, wait a second. I hadn't thought of it that way before, right? Because before you're just going along with the tide of the culture. And cultures are much like water, where it can move you around and you don't even realize that you're moving. Think of being in the water and think of there being a gentle motion that's pushing you along. And because you're not doing the motion, you don't realize that you're being swept along. And the same thing is absolutely true for any culture we participate in, including work culture. And that can be a very dangerous thing, because it can lead to the continuation of wrongs that a culture perpetrates on its people. And it can be, in a positive sense, a way for changes to happen. Cultures do change and adapt because they want to stay alive. So if you're thinking about culture change and you're saying, well, the way that our corporate culture, our organizational culture works is a problem right now, understand that the only way for that culture to change is for something absolutely vital already existing in that culture is reinforced through that change. I'll say that again. If you want to change a culture, first find out what another vital force in that culture is that you can expand by means of your change. And that's how you introduce change to a culture. As I said, it's very difficult and it takes a lot of buy-in, because people are energy, and the energy that a culture lives off of. And if only part of that energy changes, then the culture is not going to change. To make a change in that energy, focus on what is vital to that culture and how your change causes that vitality to be augmented, reproduced, and leads to its flourishing. And that's the only way to ever affect culture change. And by doing that, there's a chance you'll change the culture for good. If you enjoyed listening, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed card number 47, head over to lifespotluck.com and pick up a pack for yourself. Thanks for listening. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.